Hate to see it botched? Here's the best bits, a Botching It Up podcast short clip.
Before we get into this, I just wanna clarify my views. So before you call me an AEW apologist or a fanboy, I just want us to really think about why that is the case. Because 2 years ago, this company didn't even exist. There's only 6, 7, maybe 8 members of the current roster I even knew. I don't think it's that I'm a lifelong AEW fan and I just want to defend the product. I think the situation is WWE have maybe turned me off or soured me to their products so much so I'm just desperate for anything else.
And I do understand that, and I do agree with it, and that's why I watch AEW weekly. But maybe I'm more of a staunch critic, not because I'm necessarily a WWE fan. I want AEW to avoid being the Emperor's New Clothes that TNA was and eventually died from. I think that if AEW are doing really bad things week to week, and we just gloss over it and we forget about it, that it's going to sink into rot and it's going to get worse. I want this company to be a stable competitor permanently to WWE, just in the same way that you do. But I'm not going to not see things because I want them to do the best they can. I don't think that commending them for everything, whether it's good or bad, is very conducive to them improving their business to the point where they can compete with a Raw or SmackDown.
I mean, I don't commend them for everything they do. I think every week on this podcast, I say their women's division is really bad and they need to get their shit together. It's a bad situation in the current wrestling landscape after the women's revolution and just in women's sports in general, that they're not given more time. They don't have decent storylines and it's abysmal the way they treat them, really. So not everything AEW does, I agree with. In the same way, not everything NXT does, I disagree with.
That's true, and I think that the major problem that I've thought about it, I've thought it through. AEW's had a lot of bad ideas. AEW's had a lot of good ideas. The one thing that you can say to their credit is they listen to the people, they look at their own work, and they decide, maybe we should throw that away, maybe we should keep that, maybe we're going to change that. They are a very well-oiled company in terms of actually listening to the fan response and doing something about it. That being said, there's a key crucial difference to me between NXT and AEW, and that is I watch a lot of AEW stuff, and these people are not trained enough. They're doing things that are hurting themselves, not physically, but in terms of what they should be wanting the fan to see, in terms of the longevity of their character or the portrayal of what sort of wrestler that they want to be. They're doing a lot of things wrong. And that is mostly where my frustrations with AEW come from.
They often develop pitfalls in their own characters, right?
Yeah, but it's not even just psychology. It's largely the wrestling. On this show, way more than NXT can have the most boring match in the world. But on AEW Fighter Fest Night One, I saw some really bad basic wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into the wrestling in a minute, because I think if we talk about this Wednesday Night War creatively, we're going to have a very different conversation. I think we're going to very much agree on most things. My main, anger or annoyance towards what's going in is all the politics. AEW have planned Fighter Fest with over a month's build. And it's meant to be a pay-per-view, right? But however you want to sell it, whether they did it for the fans or they did it because they realized they weren't going to sell many pay-per-views, however you want to sell it, they've decided to do it on TV. 2 weeks before this all happened, conveniently, NXT are doing the exact same thing over the same 2 weeks, which is obviously just counter-booking.
Yeah. I
right?
definitely believe that it is a counter-booking. I don't think that they would have run this show, especially not the Great American Bash, which was created by Dusty Rhodes, if Cody wasn't doing Fighter Fest.
My point being is, as a fan of wrestling in both these shows, I would much rather them do their separate thing, book their own shows, and both put on fantastic shows, and we can decide that was a better show this week or that was a better show, rather than them doing these underhanded tactics, which I feel makes both of their shows worse than what they could be.
And I see your perspective as a pure fan of wanting to watch the best wrestling has to offer on a weekly basis from both promotions. But we cannot forget here that since the conception of AEW, Cody Rhodes and the Elite and Omega and the Young Bucks and Tony Khan have called out WWE and NXT and Triple H continually. I do not see why Triple H is suddenly the bad guy for literally just creating the same thing as Cody and going head to head with them. I mean, for example, on this show, Night One tonight, Taz saying that they're not part of a sloppy shop is one thing. MJF literally saying we're in the middle of a Wednesday night war is another. I don't see that, and apart from NXT being the corporate entity, I don't see why they're in any less need or want to compete against AEW on Wednesday night when AEW, Cody Rhodes, and everybody else involved has made it quite clear that they want to hurt NXT.
And I agree. I prefer the AEW products. I prefer watching each and every week, but I wish they would keep NXT out of their mouth. I don't enjoy the attacks. I hated the throne thing. It was funny for a second, and then when you realized exactly what Cody was doing, I thought it was childish and stupid. I mean, we'll get to it later, but the Taz promo I did like.
I did like the Taz promo too.
But like you said, the MJF line, again, it was clever, and for a second it was quite funny, but then when you realize exactly why he said it, how he said it, it's not necessary, and it just harms both their products. And then NXT have done what they've done. They used the name, they've used Dusty Stuffs as an attack on Cody. All of this stuff is no benefit for the actual core audience.
But it's AEW that need to step up here and say, we're not doing this anymore, because Triple H has got unlimited funds behind him. If AEW starts winning in the so-called Wednesday Night Wars, Triple H calls Vince. He says, hey, can I get Randy Orton over? Vince says, yeah, sure, demolish that little clown company. So Randy Orton comes in, demolishes AEW. This is not a fight worth picking, and Cody Rhodes is being very dogmatic about picking it. AEW should, more than NXT, concentrate on their own thing and not allow NXT to get to them. Because Triple H has got the funds, the wrestlers, and the copyrights. He's got everything. So if they really want to pick a fight with Triple H will say, yeah, sure, we'll have a fight. But it's in no way conducive to a good product for AEW. It's fine for NXT. They don't care. They can lose all of the followers in the world. They just go back on the network. They start building up a brand again. AEW, this is make or break. They can't lower themselves to concentrate on getting pissed off about Triple H using Cody's daddy's gimmick. They have to ignore NXT and whatever NXT is doing and go straight for the jugular.
The problem with Cody is this is personal because this is all about his family, right? WWE own his dad. They own his surname. I feel like maybe it's up to AEW to rein Cody in because Cody's never going to stop doing this. He wants the copyrights, and then WWE use corporate bullshit to keep the copyrights, to keep his family name, and to keep owning his father. Cody's just going to use the corporate entity that he has to try and win that. It's like a separate war than the actual television ratings.
But you've hit the nail on the head of something that I criticize every single week on this podcast. It's the thing that most needs to be addressed. You said that Cody Rhodes needs to be reined in by someone. Who is reining anyone in on this show? This is the reason that the wrestling is bad. This is the reason that the big men don't realize that they're big men. This is the reason that the promos are taking shots at NXT and people are working with whoever they want. And Kenny Omega is not jobbing out to anyone, so he looks like a loser. And the Young Bucks are telling us that they're at the top of their game, despite the fact that nobody's really enjoying their run. This is the whole problem, the total and utter problem of AEW, which could eventually cause their demise. And that is, as much as they want to pertain to having a freedom and any guy can run over, well, we saw that with WCW. Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, they all came over. Six Pack, Scott Steiner came over. It was a free haven for people that wanted to be away from WWE. And what happened to that? The wrestlers killed the company because there was no one in charge to say no.
I don't think it's as dire as that yet.
But the rot's already setting in.
Sure.
This is what I'm passionate about. This is...
Yeah, no, I get it. But saying that, I still feel all the shots that AEW take, all the slander and the lines that maybe Cody is sneaking into scripts, I still feel AEW are running the storylines they want to run, whereas NXT is changing up their storylines every 2 to 3 weeks to try and outbook AEW or try to do something better. And more so, I think there's only been one storyline in NXT this year that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Everything else has only been good at best.
And yet NXT are the people that are landing on their feet. This is majorly where we disagree. I would agree that AEW have followed their storylines through as best they can through a pandemic, and they actually have a plan, and the matches make sense, and that's what they're going for. And I've been told, because I refuse to watch the stupid show, that on Being the Elite, they're still teasing Paige and Omega and the Young Bucks and Omega eventually turning heel against Paige. And they are building things.
Which is my favorite story in wrestling as a whole this year.
But they are building things up slowly. I would agree with you. They're not focusing on what NXT is booking so much, and they're booking their own stuff. The problem is NXT is, whatever Triple H says, definitely knee-jerk booking. It's quite clear. They book something based upon what AEW are doing. They realize that AEW's women's roster is terrible and needs so much work, it's unbelievable. So, yeah, we have noticed recently there's more and more women's matches on NXT. But you know what? The whole issue with this, and the reason that we're having an argument about it, is that NXT's knee-jerk reaction bookings end up better than AEW's long-term planning.
Some of the storylines are falling flat on their face, and they need to give them up.
Fyter Fest Night 2 versus the Great American Bash Night 2. You've got Keith Lee and Adam Cole for a winner-takes-all, and you've got Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. I know which one I'm watching first.
I disagree. I'm more excited for the AEW card. Not so much for the Chris Jericho Orange Cassidy match, but the 8-man tag, which I know you hate. The Lance Archer Joey Janela, which I think could be interesting. And
you want to watch Lance Archer Joey Janela?
Only because I'm hoping Lance Archer is going to get like a second lightning bolt up his ass.
This is another thing, man. I'm sure we'll get into this by going down the shows. In AEW, they seem to be creating stars, putting them on the burner, not knowing what to do with them, and then throwing them out blind as a goose.
I think that's just generally because their roster's too big.
Every time NXT de-push a star or a group and people start grumbling, they've already got 5-6 guys coming up. There's a constant chain. Maybe because the whole point of NXT is to churn out wrestlers for Raw and SmackDown, but they're so good at it. If somebody's getting a de-push or being thrown by the wayside a little bit, it's a good chance that they've got nothing left for them in NXT and they're about to go up to Raw or SmackDown. When there's a de-push or a sideways effect in AEW, people just get lost. I remember 2 months ago where I thought Lance Archer was a massive deal. I don't really understand or care why he's on my TV anymore. And apparently he's facing Joey Janela, who has had the most inconsistent booking of pretty much any wrestler I can think of since AEW started.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you that this is one of the big issues with AEW. I was just saying AEW are keeping to their plan, where it just feels like NXT are changing their plan up every 2 weeks. And that's frustrating as just a fan, just wanting to watch a good show.
Yeah, I would agree, separate from AEW. Nothing to do with the way that they're going against each other and what is shaping the booking. That NXT has taken a slight decline in the last year or two. It's not quite the level that it used to be, and I think that the In Your House pay-per-view showed that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna put it like this. It depends how we are grading these shows. If we're just talking wrestling ability, NXT won this week. If we're talking about creative storylines and excitement, AEW won this week. So it depends on what you care about more, I think.
I wouldn't even say that AEW won on excitement this week, though. I think AEW, personally speaking, won on the excitement that they are AEW. It's quite clear AEW's aesthetic wins every single week. AEW's in a beautiful arena. They dress things up properly. They have great camera shots. Everything looks good. But is that the excitement? Because I'm not feeling the excitement in FTR getting beach chairs and having a sit down, or Orange Cassidy having a snooze a meter away from his opponent in the main event next week. Not feeling that excitement whatsoever.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.